That gets sent out on Mondays on email. If you want to get that email, let us know and we'll sign you up. But otherwise, let's just get started. I know it's there, but it's always surprising when it pops up. Jesus liked to eat a lot. The first thing Jesus does after he calls Matthew away from the Ponzi scheme that was his tax collection racket is to invite himself over to Matthew's house for supper. You know, it's like your kid's best friend who always appears at the door even though he wasn't invited. That was me growing up with my friend Andrew. And apparently Matthew had invited some friends over for supper. If you thought Matthew was just one bad apple in a mix of a lot of other good ones, well, guess again. His friends weren't on the honor roll. They weren't invited to the gifted and talented program. They weren't the ones parents were pushing their kids to hang out with. Matthew hung out with other tax collectors and other sinners. They were back row. They were troublemakers. They were hustlers. And not just one did Matthew invite, not even a couple. Many of them came. Now, why do you think that was? Why did so many show up? Was it simply because they weren't going to pass up a free meal? Was it because they hadn't been out in a while and this was their one night to get out of the house and get away from their family for just a little bit of fun? Was it because it was a Sinners Anonymous meeting? We aren't told, but I'd wager it's because Matthew told them about his interaction with Jesus. Matthew shared his story. How Jesus didn't ask questions about why he was doing a job of ill repute. How Jesus didn't tell him to shape up or ship out. How Jesus just invited him into something beyond himself, called him to leave. How Jesus graced him. Matthew shared his story and then invited his friends, those other tax collectors and sinners, to see Jesus for themselves at supper because Jesus was coming over. Apparently, like I said, he liked to eat. But it's more than that. Table fellowship, eating with people in Bible times was more than what it seemed. It was an act of identification, of vindication, of approval. To eat with someone, to share a table with them, was to accept them. So maybe Jesus didn't like to eat so much as Jesus liked to show people how much he loved them. Thanks for joining me for this week's midweek devotion. I hope you heard a word of good news. Like and share it with someone who you think needs to hear it, because Jesus doesn't just stop eating with them. Jesus eats with us too at the communion table. God be with you till we meet again.